Right now, we're in the Grand Combat Arena in Las Vegas. The arena was loud and full of lights, music, and people. Everything looked big and bright. This place was made for showing fights to people who liked watching them. The signs in the air showed the names of fighters and the companies that paid to be part of the show. The crowd wanted to see sweat, tough moves, and someone winning. They wanted to take pictures and videos and share them with everyone. It smelled like popcorn, sweat, and something sharp in the air. People were close together, talking in excited voices, looking up at the giant screens. The screens showed fighters getting ready, stretching, and waiting for their turn to go out and fight. Some fighters looked young and happy. Some looked serious and quiet like they had done this many times before. But above all the other faces, one face looked the biggest. It was Talon Creed. His smile was huge, and he was flexing his muscles. He was the main fighter tonight. Talon Creed had a red belt and had never lost a match in these shows. Some people loved him. Others didn't. He was known for turning fun fights into real painful ones. Every time he fought, someone got hurt badly. And every time, people came back to see more. Talon was 45 years old, very big and strong. He wore clothes full of logos from sponsors. His head was bald, and he had a beard that made him look like an old-time warrior, but for TV. People running the show knew Talon made them money, but they also knew he brought trouble. Sponsors liked the attention. Fans liked seeing him fight, even though he often hurt people too much. Talon said women didn't belong on his mat. He thought women were weak and didn't deserve to fight like him. He liked to prove it by hurting them in front of everyone watching. Behind the big screens and loud crowd, deep in the back of the arena, a girl named Kaya was getting ready. She fixed the blue belt around her waist again and again, trying to make it feel just right. She wore a white gi, a special outfit for fighting. Kaya was small, but she was strong. She had trained for years, doing practice every day. She had hit pads, followed orders from her coaches, and learned all the right moves. Kaya was only 19 years old. Her hair was in a braid, and her brown eyes looked straight at the mirror. She didn't look scared. She remembered being 12 and watching matches on a tiny screen, wishing that one day she could be there too. She didn't just want to win. She wanted to show everyone that girls deserve to be here just like boys. Her coach, an older man with tough hands, had told her, "It's not about winning. It's about showing up. Stand strong. Let people see your heart. Show every girl watching that this is their place too." She kept his words in her heart as she breathed deep and kept her hands from shaking. The crowd outside got louder. The announcer called out the next match. It was time for Talon Creed. Kaya walked behind the curtain. Her bare feet touched the cold floor. The workers nearby gave her a quick nod. They didn't expect her to win. Maybe they didn't care. Her name was called. Some people clapped politely. Most people didn't know her. Kaya stepped onto the path to the mat. Her footsteps sounded like little drums. She looked straight ahead, not at the crowd. She heard whispers and laughs. "She's too small. She's just a kid." But Kaya didn't care. She had trained for this. She had heard worse. She reached the center of the mat and bowed, just like she was taught. She waited. Suddenly, the lights turned off. The arena got quiet. Then boom. Loud music started. Red and white lights flashed. On the big screens, videos showed Talon winning his old matches. One picture showed a girl on the ground holding her hurt shoulder. Talon was smiling in that picture too. Fireworks went off at the entrance. Talon Creed walked out, wearing a fancy robe with lots of sponsor names on it. He was huge. His steps were slow but strong. He looked at the crowd, nodded, and smiled big. Everyone screamed and cheered. He stopped to wave, to flex, to blow kisses, and to point at the cameras like a superstar. At the mat, he took off his robe. His gi was fancy, with gold letters spelling out his name. His red belt was tied perfectly. He looked like he was saying, "I'm the boss here." Kaya's heart was beating fast. She felt it in her fingers. But she didn't move. She bowed to him, showing respect. Talon barely nodded. He was already showing off to the crowd again. The referee stood between them and talked about the rules. "This is just a demonstration. You can fight, but don't hurt each other for real. This is about skill." Talon laughed out loud. He looked at Kaya with a mean smile. The referee stepped back. The crowd leaned in. The fight began. Kaya got into her stance. She was low and ready. Her eyes stayed on Talon. She took slow breaths even though she was nervous. Talon looked lazy, like he didn't care. His arms were hanging like he wasn't even trying. But Kaya knew that look meant danger. They moved around, slowly at first. Then suddenly, Talon kicked hard. It wasn't a gentle kick. He wanted to test her. Kaya blocked it. It pushed her back, but she didn't fall. She stood strong and got ready again. Talon came at her fast, throwing punches and kicks. Kaya moved well, dodging and blocking. She even slipped under one of his punches and gave him a quick hit to the body. She jumped back before he could catch her. Some people in the crowd clapped. They were surprised. Kaya was doing better than they thought. But Talon didn't like that. His smile faded. He got serious. His attacks got faster and harder. Kaya blocked what she could. She moved and tried to fight back. But it felt like a big storm was hitting her again and again. Then, Kaya saw her chance. Talon made a mistake. She moved quickly and brought him down with a perfect move. The crowd gasped. Talon hit the mat. His eyes looked shocked. Kaya tried to hold him down, to show she had control. But Talon got really mad. He threw her off with a loud growl and stood up fast. He looked at her like he wanted to hurt her now. Kaya stood up too, hands raised. But Talon rushed in, grabbed her arm, and twisted. He was using a real move, but too hard. She felt the pain. She knew he wasn't stopping. This wasn't a practice fight anymore. This was punishment. She tapped the mat. Once. Twice. 3 times. That meant, "I give up." But Talon didn't stop. He looked into her eyes and kept twisting. Kaya felt it snap. The sound of her arm breaking filled the arena. She screamed. Loud and painful. Her body dropped to the mat. Her other hand grabbed her broken arm. The referee ran over. Medics came quickly. Their faces are serious. They picked Kaya up gently. Her face was white, tears in her eyes. Talon stepped back and raised his arms like he won. He smiled at the cameras like hurting Kaya was something great. The crowd went wild, some angry, some cheering. The sound was loud. But something was happening. A woman was walking toward the mat. The crowd noticed. They got quieter. It was Ronda Rousey. She didn't say a word. Her hands were at her sides. Her eyes were locked on Talon. Her face was calm, but something powerful was in her. She walked down the steps, quiet as a cat. Staff members moved out of her way. The lights shone on her strong jaw and steady face. She wasn't scared. She was ready. She reached the mat just as the medics carried Kaya away. Kaya looked up at her through tears. Something was about to change. As Kaya moved her lips to say sorry, like she thought she did something wrong, Ronda shook her head once. It was a small, gentle shake. Her eyes looked kind as she reached out and put her hand on Kaya's shoulder. She didn't need to say anything. Her touch said it all. It said, "You don't need to say sorry. I see how strong you are. I'm proud of you." Ronda stayed standing there as the helpers took Kaya away. Her hand dropped to her side, and her eyes looked back at Talon. He was still smiling, still waving his arms, still loving the cheers from the crowd. The lights were flashing, the music was playing, and the announcer was talking loudly. But Ronda didn't move. She didn't blink. She just kept watching Talon. When Talon finally saw her, his smile got bigger. He realized who had stepped forward. Ronda was standing right at the edge of the mat, staring at him with eyes that said, "The fun is over." At that moment, everything felt quiet. The lights looked dimmer. The space between Ronda and Talon felt full of something powerful. More real than the show the people had come to watch. Talon lifted the microphone. His voice was loud and silly. He teased Ronda. He laughed at her. He tried to make her mad. The whole arena was quiet, waiting to see what Ronda would do. Ronda took one step forward onto the mat. She kept her eyes on Talon. She didn't say anything. But her silence was louder than all the noise. Just by standing there, She promised something serious was coming. Her boots touched the mat softly, like the ocean water slowly rolling in. She walked slowly, calmly. It was like the whole place could feel her coming. The lights above flickered. They slowed down, like they felt the change in the air. Talon held his microphone, but stopped talking. His smile faded for a second when he saw her steady eyes. The crowd, which was so loud before, now started to whisper. Behind Ronda, the medics were helping Kaya. She held her hurt arm and breathed fast because it hurt so much. Her face looked pale in the bright lights. Every step the medics took reminded everyone what had just happened. It reminded them that this wasn't just fun and games. Someone got hurt. Ronda watched Kaya being taken away until she disappeared behind the curtain. Then she looked back at Talon. He rolled his shoulders like he was shaking off something cold. His smirk came back, like he was trying to look strong again. He lifted the microphone and tapped it hard. It made loud pop sounds. Then he started talking again, his voice mean and teasing. He called Ronda names. He made fun of her trophies. He said she wasn't good anymore because she was older. He made fun of her for being a woman. Every word was mean. He wanted the crowd to laugh. He wanted to look big and scary. Some people still cheered for him. Ronda didn't move. Her face was calm. Her eyes were sharp. She watched him closely. She saw every small move he made. She saw how his hands moved. She saw how his feet didn't land quite right. She was studying him. She didn't talk, but her silence felt big. The crowd started getting quiet. Some people stopped laughing. Some stopped cheering. They turned to look at Ronda. They could feel something was different. Her quiet strength was louder than his mean words. In the tunnel, Kaya was lying down on a little bed with wheels. She had an oxygen mask on her face. The helpers were checking her heart and breathing. She was in pain, but she kept watching the small screen the medic held up. It showed Ronda standing in the ring. Ronda looked so small compared to the big arena, the flashing lights, and Talon. But Kaya saw something else. She saw Ronda standing tall. Even with her pain, Kaya felt her heart beat faster. Her eyes filled with tears again, but this time, they were tears of hope. Talon was walking back and forth now. He looked like an animal that thought it was the boss. He pointed the microphone at Ronda. He shouted, asking if she was scared. He teased her again, saying she was too old and might break a bone. His words bounced around the arena, but they didn't sound as strong as he thought. Each joke felt weaker, like they were missing their target. Ronda just kept standing there, still and calm. She didn't laugh. She didn't flinch. She just watched. Ronda took another step forward. Now they were closer. Everyone in the crowd was holding their breath. Even the workers at the edge of the mat looked nervous. They didn't know if they should stop this. But no one did. The announcer tried to get the show back on track, but his voice didn't matter anymore. The plan was falling apart. Something real was happening. Ronda took off her jacket. She folded it neatly and placed it down. Everything she did was slow and steady. She was showing everyone she was ready. She stepped fully onto the mat. She didn't look tense. She looked calm, but her body was ready. Her hands were relaxed. Her eyes were locked on Talon. He was walking around her now, shaking his arms, trying to look big. But he didn't see. She was the one in control now. The crowd started to notice. Some still cheered, but others grew quiet. They could feel the change. Something was happening. Something important. The big screens above showed Ronda's face. She looked calm. She was breathing slowly. Talon looked more nervous now. His jaw got tighter. His eyes looked around, looking for people to cheer for him. But fewer people were cheering. In the tunnel, Kaya was still watching. Her hand gripped the blanket tight. Her body hurt so much, but her heart was full of hope. She saw herself in Ronda. She remembered every time she trained, every bruise, every time she thought she wasn't strong enough. Now she saw that strength standing there, just for her. Talon suddenly rushed forward. He couldn't take the quiet anymore. He moved fast, just like before, ready to grab and slam. But Ronda moved like water. She stepped aside gently. She turned just a little, and he missed. He flew past her, and she didn't even touch him. The crowd gasped. The The silence broke. Everyone realized something had changed. Talon looked confused. He turned around. His face was red now. He showed his teeth, but he wasn't confident anymore. He looked worried. Ronda just stood there, still calm. Watching. Waiting. Like the ocean waiting for the right wave. The lights above flickered again, matching the slow rise and fall of Ronda's chest. The air felt heavy. Everyone waited. Talon kept walking in circles. He shouted. He roared. He waved his arms. But Ronda didn't move. She was quiet before the storm. She was the calm that comes right before the wind picks up and the rain pours down. She stood for every girl who was ever told she wasn't strong enough. For every fighter who was hurt by people who thought being mean made them powerful. She stood for Kaya, who was watching with tears and hope. The silence felt huge. Everyone was leaning forward. Their phones were up, but they forgot to use them. They just watched. Ronda stood on the mat, her eyes on Talon. He looked strong, but he was scared. He didn't understand the calm power in front of him. His breathing got faster, not because he was tired, but because he was confused. Every time he tried to grab her, she moved out of the way. She didn't fight with anger. She danced around him, using his own strength against him. She was like the wind. He couldn't catch her. The crowd saw it now. His mask was cracking. The big, mean man who hurt others for fun was losing. Not just the fight, but the story he had told everyone about being the best. Ronda stood still, watching, waiting, and the world held its breath. The crowd, who always shouted happily for Talon because he was so strong, started to go quiet. People stopped cheering and began to whisper to each other. They saw that Talon wasn't the same anymore. He looked like he was chasing shadows on the floor. He looked angry and confused. Every move he made was full of frustration. But Ronda was calm. Her breathing stayed soft and slow. She didn't blink. She stood in a relaxed way. Her hands moved just a little, just enough. Her feet slid across the mat with tiny, careful steps. She always stood in the right spot, like the ocean touching the sand slowly and surely. The loud music stopped. The cheers were gone. It was quiet all around them. All you could hear was the sound of their shoes on the mat, their breathing, and Talon making little angry noises when he missed again and again. Far away in the medical room, Kaya was lying on a soft bed. Her arm was broken and wrapped gently. It hurt a lot, so much that it made her eyes blurry. But she didn't close her eyes. A kind helper was holding a small screen for her. On it, she watched the live fight in the arena. The camera showed Ronda's face. Ronda looked calm. She wasn't scared. She was focused. Kaya felt her heart twist. Not because of the pain, but because of a strong, brave hope. She thought about all the long hours of training, all the bruises, and all the moments when she had wanted to quit. But now, she saw Ronda standing strong in front of the man who had hurt her. Ronda's body had once been broken, but not her spirit. Talon shouted loudly. It sounded wild and scary. He ran at Ronda again, his hands reaching like claws, trying to grab and hurt her. But Ronda spun on one foot and lightly touched his wrist. That tiny touch made Talon miss and stumble forward. The crowd gasped. Everyone was shocked. Talon turned quickly. His eyes looked surprised, just for a second, before he became angry again. He bared his teeth like a wild animal. His head was shiny with sweat under the lights. The big veins on his neck stood out. He stood up again with a growl. Ronda didn't move. She didn't try to hit him or take advantage. She just returned to her calm stance. She breathed softly. Her eyes stayed on Talon. Her body showed a message without saying a word. She didn't need to chase him. She didn't need to hurt him to prove anything. She was here. She was strong. She would wait. Talon started to walk around her in a circle, saying mean things under his breath. But his words didn't hurt Ronda. She stayed quiet and strong. The cameras showed Talon's clenched fists. His jaw twitched. His eyes were angry, but deep down he was scared. He was scared because all his power was not enough to stop Ronda's calm. The audience stopped shouting. Everyone sat still. The air felt heavy. They all felt something big was happening, not just a fight, but something more important. Ronda didn't look away as Talon came closer. He pretended to punch with one hand and then swung hard with the other. This punch had broken jaws before. The matches ended. It made people cheer. But Ronda wasn't there when it landed. She ducked. She twisted. Her shoulder brushed past Talon's ribs. She was behind him now. She lightly touched the back of his shirt as she passed, guiding him forward. Talon stumbled again. He caught himself and turned around, angry and breathing hard. He looked tired. He was trying not to explode with rage. He couldn't land even one good hit on Ronda. Everyone in the crowd could feel it. The power was shifting. The man they once cheered for was now just someone flailing, like a kid throwing a tantrum. He couldn't stop the quiet river of Ronda's skill. The people who talked about the fights on the microphones didn't say anything anymore. They had forgotten their lines. They just stared, understanding for the first time what real martial arts meant. It wasn't about being scary. It was about being wise, calm, and in control. Talon shouted at Ronda. He told her to stop dancing. He told her to fight him properly. He told her to stop embarrassing him. But Ronda said nothing. She just kept moving. She let her body do the talking. Her breath, her steps, her stillness all said, "I am ready. I am not afraid. I am strong." Talon kept attacking, faster, harder, more wild. He was desperate. But Ronda stayed peaceful. Each move she made was clear, perfect. She dodged, she guided. She taught a lesson with every movement. She reminded everyone what martial arts were really for, not for hurting people, but for learning control and kindness. Talon had forgotten that. And then it happened. The moment that everyone would remember forever. Talon, in his rage, tried to do the same terrible move he used on Kaya. He grabbed Ronda's wrist. He twisted, trying to break her arm just like he broke Kaya's. But Ronda moved like water. She stepped in close. She turned with his movement. And in one smooth motion, she flipped the hold. Her hand locked his wrist. Her other hand guided his elbow. She brought Talon to the mat, soft and easy, like the ocean pulling a rock under the waves. The arena went silent. Talon's knees hit the mat. Ronda had him in the same position he had used to hurt Kaya. Everyone could see it. The message was clear. Talon's face changed. He knew. He felt the pain growing. Panic filled his eyes. He was scared now. He wasn't in control anymore. He screamed. He tapped the mat. He begged her to stop. But Ronda didn't let go right away. She looked at him, calm. She held him still, letting him feel what he had done to others. Then she tightened her grip just a little. A loud crack filled the quiet arena. Talon screamed again. His body shook. All the pride he had was gone. Then Ronda let him go. She stepped back. Talon fell to the mat, holding his arm. He cried, real tears. Not just from pain, but from shame. The helpers ran in to help him. They picked him up and took him away from the mat that had once been his kingdom. Ronda stood still. Her breath was calm. Her eyes looked around the arena. She looked at all the people who had once cheered for violence. She showed them what real strength looked like. Real power wasn't about hurting others. It was about knowing when not to. She walked to the edge of the mat. She picked up her jacket. She put it on slowly. She looked back at the crowd. She looked at the camera. She looked at Kaya through the screen. She looked at every girl who had been told she wasn't strong enough. And in that big, powerful silence, the storm was over. Now everyone knew the truth. The mat was not a place for cruelty. Martial arts weren't about breaking people. They were about holding back, staying calm, and showing honor. Ronda stepped down from the mat. This time, the crowd cheered. But it wasn't the wild cheering from before. It wasn't about wanting someone to be hurt. This cheer was full of respect. They had seen something special. Ronda didn't raise her arms. She didn't smile or act proud. She just walked quietly, her jacket over her shoulders. Her eyes looked around. Behind her, Talon was being carried away. He looked small now. His eyes were far away. He wasn't a giant anymore. The pain and the shame had made him realize what he had done. The medics worked quickly. They checked his arm and shoulder. They put him on a stretcher. Cameras showed every second. Some showed his twisted face. Some showed the tears on his cheeks. But Ronda didn't look back. She didn't watch the screens showing the moment she had flipped him. She didn't need to. She had already shown everything she needed to. She walked slowly and calmly, like someone who knew how dangerous fighting could be. She understood what it meant to have power, and how to wait until just the right time to use it, to help people who couldn't help themselves. Her feet took her along the edge of the mat. The people working there moved out of her way without needing to be told. The tournament workers didn't know what to do or say after what had just happened. The security guards stood still, not sure what was going on. Their walkie-talkies made soft crackling sounds, full of confused voices. In the medical room, Kaya was lying on a soft stretcher. Her face was very pale, but her eyes were open wide, and full of tears, not just from pain, but from something else too. She had watched the whole fight. She saw how Ronda moved so carefully. She saw how calm Ronda was. She saw how Ronda had turned Talon's meanness back on him. Kaya's heart beat hard. Her broken arm hurt in time with her heart, but her chest was full of hope. She whispered Ronda's name softly. That name wasn't just a name anymore. It was a promise. Ronda opened the door to the medical room. The noise from the big arena got quieter as she walked into the bright, clean room. Her eyes found Kaya right away. Kaya opened her mouth in surprise, and tears rolled down her cheeks as Ronda walked over. Her footsteps were soft, and her face looked kind. She came to Kaya's side and put a gentle hand on Kaya's good shoulder. Her thumb brushed the hospital gown with the same gentle touch she had used during the fight, the same quiet power that had stopped Talon before letting him feel the pain of what he had done. "You were strong," Ronda said quietly. Her voice was soft, but her words were strong. Kaya shook her head. Tears fell faster as she tried to say something, to tell Ronda she had failed, that she couldn't keep fighting, that she had cried in front of everyone. But Ronda shook her head too, just a tiny shake. That little movement told Kaya to stop blaming herself. Ronda's eyes were calm and kind as she leaned closer and spoke softly, just for Kaya to hear. "You were strong," she said again. "And you will be even stronger." Outside the medical room, the arena was full of quiet confusion. The staff tried to get things back in order. The people who talked on the microphone spoke softly now. They didn't know what to call what had just happened. Was it a fight? A lesson? A big change? The tournament officials stood in a group, talking in worried voices. They talked about rules and safety and what to say to the news. But it was too late. The video of Talon's scream and Ronda's calm face had already spread all over the internet. Talon, with his arm now wrapped in a tight brace, had red eyes and didn't seem to hear anything. He was being pushed past the staff on a stretcher. He didn't want anyone's help. He couldn't stop thinking about the sound of his arm breaking, like a mirror shattering. He remembered the feeling of being trapped under Ronda's calm eyes. He had made fun of her. But now he couldn't forget what had happened. As they wheeled him past the medical room, he turned his head. He saw Ronda standing next to Kaya. They were sharing a quiet moment, a moment that didn't belong to him. A moment he couldn't take away. Anger rose inside him, a mean and empty feeling. But something else was there too. Something deep and strange, something that felt worse than the pain in his arm. He didn't know what it was, but it stayed in his belly, twisting like a knot. In the arena, the lights dimmed. The next match was getting ready to start. But the crowd didn't cheer like before. Their shouting was quieter now. Something had changed. Two young men walked onto the mat, trying to smile. But they looked nervous. They looked to the edges of the mat, where Ronda had stood, where Talon had lost. The mat still felt different, like it remembered what had happened. The match started, but the crowd didn't yell and scream like before. Their claps came slowly. They were still thinking about what had happened. Something inside them had changed. Parents hugged their daughters a little tighter. The girls watched the mat with big eyes. They saw something new. Something strong. Something they hadn't known was possible, until tonight. Back in the medical room, Ronda helped Kaya sit up on the stretcher. She gently fixed the blankets to make her comfortable. She talked in a soft voice about breathing, about handling pain, and about how healing would take time. Kaya listened carefully. Her breath caught sometimes, and tears still came, but she nodded and took in Ronda's words like dry ground soaking up water. Kaya held onto the promise that she could come back. that she could still fight again, that her arm may be broken, but her spirit was not. Ronda stepped back and looked at Kaya's coach, who stood in the corner. He had his arms crossed. His face looked both thankful and sad that he hadn't been able to protect his student. Ronda and the coach looked at each other. No words were needed. In that quiet look, they both agreed, Kaya's story wasn't over. She would come back to the mat. When she was ready, she would stand again. Outside the room, the hallway was busy. Staff moved around quickly, trying to fix the confusion. Radios crackled softly. Feet shuffled. People whispered, unsure what to do next. Then Ronda stepped into the hallway. Everything around her went still. People stopped talking. Some looked at her with thanks. Some looked scared. Some looked confused, but with respect, because Ronda had done something big, something no one expected. Talon was sitting in a wheelchair. A medic was checking his brace. He looked up and saw Ronda. He opened his mouth like he wanted to say something, but nothing came out. His eyes were full of messy feelings, anger, shame, confusion. And under all that, something else. Something he didn't understand. Something that had started the moment he realized he wasn't as strong as he thought. Ronda looked at him. Her eyes are calm. For a second, the hallway felt like the mat again. Quiet. Seriously. Heavy. She gave him a tiny nod, just like she had with Kaya. Then she turned and walked down the hallway. Her steps were slow and calm. Her shoulders relaxed. Wherever she walked, everything behind her became quiet. She was a reminder. A sign of the storm that had passed. A symbol of what true strength looked like. She stepped into the arena. The crowd turned to look. They started clapping, slowly at first, then louder. But it wasn't a loud cheer for violence. It was a quiet, growing sound of respect. Of thanks. Of change. She didn't wave. She didn't lift her hands. She didn't try to get attention. She just walked. She looked around at the faces in the crowd, moms holding daughters, dads holding sons. Young fighters watching with wide eyes. Their dreams were changing. They had seen something new, something real. She walked until she reached the edge of the arena, where the lights faded into shadows. She stopped and looked back one last time, at the mat. The place where the storm had happened. Where truth had been shown. Then she took a deep breath and stepped into the shadows. She left behind the lights, the noise, and the thousands of people who had seen what real power looked like. Not loud, not cruel, but calm and controlled. Even after she was gone, the clapping still echoed through the halls. People could still feel what she had shown them. Outside the Grand Combat Arena, the air smelled like the road and the soft, sweet wind of night. The ground was still warm from the day. Ronda stood under the streetlights, breathing in the night air. She let her mind relax as everything became quiet. Inside, people were cleaning up. They were taking down cameras and packing up wires. Those cameras had seen everything, every sound, every scream, and now that story was already spreading across phones, TVs, and homes. Commentators with tired voices packed their notes. They gave each other looks that said, "Tonight was different. Tonight reminded us what martial arts is really about." In the medical room, Kaya sat on a soft bench. Her arm was in a new brace. It hurt, but her eyes were bright. Her coach sat beside her. His hands rested on his knees, and his face softened every time he looked at her. He looked at her. And in that quiet moment, they both knew something very important. This was not the end of Kaya's journey. It was the start of something bigger. A kind of lesson that was deeper than pain, deeper than fear. A lesson about being strong, about knowing what it means to keep going, even after something bad happens. Then the door opened slowly, and Ronda walked in. She brought a calm feeling with her, and Kaya looked up right away, her eyes starting to fill with tears. Ronda walked toward her slowly, just like she walked on the mat. Her jacket was still neat. Her hair was pulled back. You could only see how tired she was by looking into her eyes. Ronda sat next to Kaya, moving gently. She put her hands on her knees and looked right into Kaya's eyes, just like she had looked at the whole crowd earlier that night. "You did not fail," Ronda said softly. Her voice was calm and honest. Kaya shook her head. Her lips were shaking. She wanted to say something, but she couldn't. She remembered the moment her arm got hurt. The moment she screamed. The moment she thought she lost everything she had worked so hard for. Ronda lifted her hand and placed it over Kaya's shaking fingers. The touch was soft and warm. It helped Kaya feel less scared inside. "You did not fail," Ronda said again. And in the quiet that followed, Kaya let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Her body shook, but she started to believe Ronda's words. The sadness inside her started to feel smaller. And something new took its place. Something strong, something like a promise. Outside, the last people were leaving. Families walked to their cars. Children held posters. Parents looked back at the arena, thinking about what they saw. People were talking quietly now. The loud excitement had turned into a quiet memory. The screens near the doors still showed Ronda's match in slow motion. The way she stayed calm, the way she used Talon power against him. The moment she stopped herself before hurting him more. She showed strength by not hurting him back. That was real power. Talon had already left. Security helped him get to a car. His arm was in a brace. He wore a hood to hide his face. Cameras flashed as they tried to get a picture of him, the man who used to scare others on the mat. No one knew what would happen to him next. The people in charge were talking quietly. They talked about rules, what to do next, and about the companies that used to support Talon. Those companies were now saying they didn't want to be part of the violence anymore. Ronda stayed with Kaya. She talked quietly about what comes next: the healing, the training, the hard days. She talked about how Kaya would come back one day. She wouldn't be a victim. She would be proof that no one could break her spirit. Kaya listened. Her tears dried. Her breathing became calm. The fear was still there, but it was smaller now. Something she could carry. Something she could handle. The door opened again. Kaya's parents walked in. They looked so worried. They wished they could have protected her. But they loved her very much. Their hands shook as they reached out to her, afraid they might hurt her by mistake. Ronda stood up and stepped back to give them space. Kaya reached out to her parents. She let them hug her. She let them know that she was still there, still whole in the ways that mattered most. Ronda nodded to Kaya's coach as she walked toward the door. He followed her into the hallway. He closed the door softly behind them. They stood in the hallway, where it smelled like medicine and machines. They talked for a short time. The coach quietly said thank you. He promised to keep helping Kaya. He showed respect for Ronda, not with big words, but by looking her in the eyes and shaking her hand. Then Ronda walked outside. The parking lot was almost empty now. The lights made long shadows. The city sounds were coming back. The arena was becoming quiet again. Ronda walked slowly to her car. She was thinking about Kaya, the crowd, the faces, and the cheers. She felt the weight of everything that happened. But I didn't regret it. It wasn't happiness either. It was something heavier, the feeling of being someone others would look up to. Someone who showed what real strength looked like. She stopped before getting into her car. She leaned on the door and looked up at the stars. Her breath made little clouds in the cool air. She thought about all the girls who watched tonight. The young fighters who would now train differently. Who would remember this night when they stood on the mat. She thought about Talon too. She remembered the moment their eyes met when she held him. She saw fear in his eyes. And pain. And confusion. He was starting to see what he had become. Then she saw something move. She turned and saw Kaya coming out of the side door. Her parents were right behind her. Her coach was beside her, helping her walk. Kaya's face was pale, but she looked at Ronda across the parking lot and gave her a small smile. It was a soft smile, but it was stronger than any loud cheer. It would last longer than any win. Ronda smiled back, just a little. It was her way of saying she understood. That the journey would keep going. That strength had been found even in the pain. Ronda's car door closed with a soft sound. The engine started. She drove away, the arena growing smaller in her mirror. The lights faded as she went down the road. She drove through the quiet streets. The city lights reflected on her window. The memories of the night played in her mind slowly, clearly. These were moments that would matter for a long time. Moments that would help others in their own fights, their own choices, their own times of falling or standing tall. As the city turned into quieter roads, Ronda took a deep breath. Just one. She closed her eyes for a second. The storm inside her was calming down. She felt peaceful again. She knew the past couldn't be changed. The pain that was given and the pain that was taken were now part of the path. Part of what it means to fight, to protect, and to keep standing even when standing is the hardest thing to do. The road stretched out under the night sky. The stars above were bright and far away. The engine hummed softly as she kept driving. She carried with her the promise she had made, the promise she had kept, and the promise she would keep again for Kaya, for every girl who would step onto the mat, for the spirit of martial arts. A spirit that would never be quiet. A spirit that would never be broken. A spirit that would keep standing, one breath, one step, one strong moment at a time. Did you enjoy the story? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below.